Look, guys, we're hearing a lot of things at the moment, and if you're listening to our politicians at the moment, they're talking down our economy. If you're a window company and we're at a window conference, times are tough. Builds are down, and what today's presentation is talking about a potential new profit stream which you could add to your business. You know, you need to remain agile, review products which you can easily add to your business and obviously still make a buck. So if you're not familiar with security screens, hopefully you are by the time we finish. We're going to be talking about some of the new trends that are coming through in this security screens marketplace. And with a lot more inclusions in AS 2047, with security screens being involved, you know, now's a great opportunity to get involved. So hopefully we can go through some of those things for us there. We've got a really good team set up today, so we'll be kicking off. A lot of people think security screens are only there to protect your window when a thunderstorm is taking place. Not the case. All right, so let's get into this team panel that's going to help you today. First off, we have, once known for challenging Danny Green to an arm wrestle, he's worked with such leading brands as InvisiGuard, AluGuard, IntruderGuard, and now Amplimesh Super Screen. Born in New Zealand but calls Australia home, from Capral Aluminium, it's the internationally experienced Barry Lunn. Chairman of the NSSA and one of Australia's key manufacturers of security screen products at his company Prowler. He is a passionate Queenslander and loves talking about state of origin for this year. It's Michael Henry. Weekends you can find him preparing for a triathlon. Monday to Friday he's the Chief Operating Officer for Crimsafe. Built tough for a tough country, it's Derek Tidey. And CEO of the Security Door Company in Melbourne, manufacturing and servicing the Greater Melbourne area, a board member of the NSSA and an active marketing committee member, all whilst being a full-time mum. So today must feel like a holiday for her. Welcome, Katrina, Adlington. So team, we are here today to talk about supercharging security screens for the window and door business. So I've done well here. I've missed a few slides. That's us. We've gone through that. So when we're talking about supercharging the windows and doors and how security screens can play an active role, and obviously we're talking about security screens that are compliant, installed and manufactured by an NSSA member, of course. We want to talk about some of the trends, and probably the biggest trend that I'm picking up so far would be fall prevention screens. It's been spoken about quite a lot at this conference. Now, Barry, you've had a fair bit of involvement with fall prevention screens. There might be some in the room that aren't familiar with it. Could you give a bit of information about them?
Yes, absolutely. Can I just clarify, Jack, you did say call Australia home, but I don't call the Wallabies my home team. All right, mate? Wow. Proud Kiwi.
Hey, suddenly Collingwood doesn't sound too bad, guys, eh?
All right, mate. I just had to clarify that, just in case there was any discontent. It's interesting that we're actually having this conversation in Sydney, because really Sydney was where the whole fall prevention screen started, and particularly was a big issue in the media in Sydney some 7 or 8 years ago, with a huge amount of young children getting seriously injured and killed falling from windows. And I guess my personal point of view on that is, why is it a big issue in Sydney? In Sydney you've got a lot of sliding windows, as you have in Queensland. But in Queensland you've got a lot more grills to protect. In Sydney it's a lot more fly screens. You go down to Melbourne and it's a lot more awning windows. So Sydney was a major issue for this, and particularly relating to fly screens. And it really came from the doctors at Westmead Hospital. So the doctors at Westmead Hospital had got to a point where they were sick of seeing kids coming in the door, either very seriously injured or unfortunately dead. And they identified that a lot of what was happening was children in upper stories were leaning up against a fly screen. And it wasn't a case that they were throwing themselves against a fly screen, they were pushing it, they were jumping through them. What was often happening was they were standing on a bed, they'd lean up against the fly screen, and of course they would get an initial pressure, and they would think, oh, this is good, I'm going to lean forward, and God love, in a standard fly screen, a young child leans forward on a standard fly screen and out they go. So that was really what drove it, and Westmead Hospital and the doctors at Westmead Hospital really started to agitate in particular the New South Wales state government. They came up with the slogan, "Kids can't fly," and really started pushing that whole thing. And they got a lot of coverage in the media in Sydney. Yeah. Got very prevalent, got a lot of media coverage, and they were then able to raise that profile and get people to start thinking about, you know, what has actually happened. And then over a period of time, as they've pushed that through, they've managed to get a whole pile of things to change. You know, there's a whole pile of new rules and regulations, both state and federal, that relate to this issue now. And consequently, there have been a lot less stories in the media about what's been happening with that. So the Westmead Hospital really pushed it. They got the industry involved. The AWA were heavily involved at that time, and that really pushed through into the new standards we now have for fall prevention screens.
You see this as a growing opportunity as it rolls out around the country?
I think it's absolutely a major issue in term, and particularly I think the screen solution for this is very, very good. And the Alspec business had an interaction with a particular job up the coast where it was a short stay apartments. They needed to meet the requirements, and they had sliding windows in all these apartments, and they'd gone and put locks on all the windows. So restricted the opening of all the windows. Because they were short stay apartments, what was happening that every time someone came to stay, they were just forcing the locks open and driving the windows back. So what they ended up with is going to the Alspec business and coming up with fall prevention screens instead to solve that issue, because people do want airflow. At the end of the day, there's not much point having a sliding window if it's only opening 50 mil or 100 mil.
So straight away, just improving the airflow into the business, into the building, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Barry, just one other question. How's that state from state at the moment? What's changed in the legislation space? So we've got National Construction Code.
Correct. Yep. I mean, in New South Wales in particular, it's been legislated very heavily, as you know, through Strata. Strata in particular in New South Wales have really driven that forward and made sure that all of the Strata buildings in New South Wales now have to meet those requirements.
Retrospectively.
Yep. So it has changed the market quite dramatically, and I guess opened up a whole nother market for screens, where particularly on second, third floor buildings where maybe they wouldn't have had screens at all, now they have to have that requirement. So it's been quite busy.
So one of the things you can see on the screen here is one of the information resources that the NSSA puts out as a key message in regards to the fall prevention screens to try and help the clarity. So if you aren't an NSSA member and this is something you want to have access to and explore, please come along to the stand and ask a few questions and we can gladly help you out.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Barry. Hey, Michael, I'm going to come to you on this one. Buildings are getting built closer to one another. It's a massive trend, this one. Might be a topic that not a lot of people know in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess there's two major topics here, but the first one that we'll just briefly talk about is fire attenuation. And blocks are getting smaller, houses are getting bigger. The distance between the two buildings is changing immensely, and consequently we're dealing with the concerns of fire spreading. So if there's a kitchen fire in your house, making sure that it doesn't transfer to the next house and end up lighting up the whole street. Basically the fire attenuation and the use of these screens is critical here. Basically it does dampen that ability for the fire to spread. It is something that needs to be tested. CSIRO and companies like that have been supporting with testing how much energy these screens can hold. But it's a little bit like the WERS. It holds back around about 40% of the energy transfer, so it is significant. And really, from a building construction point of view, it needs to always go back to a fire engineer, and they have to certify that. So it does still go back to the engineering level. This is
still a very prominent topic at the moment, because we've all heard in the news about flammable cladding and things like that. I guess this is looking at it to then how do we tackle those issues if there is a fire? How can we restrict the building next to it coming alight? And this is all about buildings being very close to one another.
Absolutely. You used to be able to hand the sugar to your neighbour. Now we've got to put the fire attenuation screens there. So that's one of the downsides. But at least we're looking after each other's homes now. But it is a real challenge. Like the variation in buildings has changed so much that, quarter acre block, what was that? You buy one of those now. So that's changed. And you've got this down in Victoria. Like you've got a massive growth corridor down there for where all those houses, they're just stripping back the land, shove them all in, gutter to gutter. And so it's a real challenge. And I guess the question that we're probably proposing to the window industry is how well is the window industry capitalising on that, and how can we value add and create new revenue streams back into the security screen industry and the window industry collectively.
So, Michael, there's an issue that comes up through some of our customers where a builder will ask for screens, and the screens get fitted, and then they come back and say, oh, can you get this approved for fire attenuation? So what happens in that situation?
I'd say this fire attenuation area is probably one of the greatest areas in our industry. People really struggle with this space, and the NSSA, through the technical committee, is trying to create better clarity here, but it is very fuzzy because it depends who's driving the conversation, if it's coming from the builder, if it's coming from the certifier, if it's coming from the consumer. So that's a bit of a challenge. The most important thing is trying to get this conversation started early in the property development space, so then it's not a surprise at the end and they go, oh, guess what, my house isn't compliant because I don't have these fire attenuation screens on. The other thing is the alternative, and I guess at the moment a lot of the fire engineers, they go to heavy solutions, dredging, the water systems and things like the big engineering systems to create this attenuation. Security screens do a fantastic job at doing that. Either the woven stainless steel or the perforated products, they all do the job. They'll create that barrier between the two buildings. So.
You mentioned houses being built out, the urban sprawl that's happening in a lot of our cities, and obviously, bushfire then becomes a topic. So two different topics.
Yeah.
People do get them confused as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's fire attenuation. I guess that's the urban fire issues that we're trying to deal with, and then we've got bushfire. And Victoria probably was the epicentre of the bushfire and the Bell and all those things from those tragedies that occurred a number of years ago now. And once again, this is actually the bushfire was probably one of the conversations that Derek and I had, I don't know, probably about 5-7 years ago that really brought the NSSA back to the front and for where the National Construction Code was changing and it was impacting our industry and the screen industry, and now we were getting tied into construction codes just like fall prevention has. And the NSSA didn't, or the industry didn't have a voice because our association wasn't readily formed. Bushfire is huge, and starting from Bell 12, half to 19, etc., the screens can fulfil a strategic solution to the window systems along the way. So big projects, big opportunities, and I guess the other issue is it does start from an insect gauze level, and I guess we've done some projects, let's say around Byron Bay and things like that, and they're going for a price because they've thought about it at the last minute, and they're trying to get this. The biggest concern, I guess, there is the durability of those screens over the years, and the nice thing about the security range is quite obviously durability and longevity.
Derek, I'll come to you. So there's a big focus on energy efficiency in buildings, and obviously people are concentrating heavily on glass. Security screens do have an active role to play in this space, and you've done a couple of good projects.
Yeah, we have, Jack, and I think where people have always seen security screens as predominantly being security and they don't do a whole lot else, some of the applications that high-performance screens are starting to really prove themselves in, we'll discuss more today, but one of them is definitely solar. And we identified this a while ago and started working with the AWA to quantify what that improvement was. So if you went to the WERS site now, you can go to certified products, and in the certified products there's an area for screening, and there's a list of screens there that have been tested through WERS. So the results that have come out of that are from a generic window, and then they've also put different glazing types into that as well and shown the improvements that having a high-performance screen can have on that, both in the perforated and woven product. So the screens definitely improve, and you'll see some of the improvements are quite significant. They improve the solar heat gain coefficient of a window very significantly. So this particular job was designed from a passive energy viewpoint where both glazing and screens are working in combination in probably a fantastic example. So the internal of the building is totally enclosed with glass sliding doors, and it was a G. James project. And then the external is the skin of woven mesh screens. So there was a lot of concerns from the owners about the screens maybe warbling and making noise in the wind, which none of that occurs. But what it does do, it acts as the ventilation control system, I suppose, for the job. It's reliant on solar heat to heat it up. It has one wood fire, open wood fireplace in there, and one fan. That's the only moderation or air conditioning that it has. So it's totally reliant on using the sun and ventilation to be able to keep it cool or warm. And then the screens act as a balustrade, as a bushfire protector, as an insect protector, as everything else. So it's the applications that it has is quite broad. So it's a fantastic job.
Fantastic looking job.
Yeah.
Just shows how many different spots security screens can go into once you start then referring to things like balustrade. What I particularly like about this job, and when similar projects has been done, is if you're trying to hit a certain energy point for the building, the benefit is you might be able to procure a more readily available glass with the addition now of security screens being on versus having to up-spec into another glass that may not be readily available. So one of the benefits there.
I think the only, I suppose, last point that we really need to get across, and I know that WERS is working on this, is getting I suppose, a way of how we can get a national agreement to be able to move that into some of the energy rating software. So once we can get security screens of our types into energy rating software, then we can have more energy ratings actually specifying it. So I know it's a task of WERS to keep pushing for that.
So fall prevention, fire attenuation, bushfire, balustrade, energy efficiency. You know, saving energy is the same as making a bit of money as well.
Insect screens.
What's that?
Insects.
Insect screens, yes, absolutely.
Apparently they do security, Jack.
They do security?
Yeah.
We do it a bit different down in Victoria. Speaking of Victoria, Katrina, you know, these products are security doors, and a bit of an experience that you've been going through in your business, they really need to be. They need to be tested and compliant.
Yeah, well, definitely. We are seeing more and more headlines in Melbourne and Victoria of, you know, people's homes being broken into, and quite simply, you know, most of my Monday mornings now in our business is answering phone calls of people that were broken in over the weekend, and they're not smashing windows like they used to. They are literally just kicking in the front door. So that's why it's becoming more and more important that everyone needs some sort of a security door, a compliant security door on their front door, that's for sure. So
personally, I remember this one going through because, as you can see from all the newspapers that it was on, it was front page news, it was on the 6 p.m. news, and this was all about really a home invasion spree. So this was about if there was no protection on your door. Now, it didn't matter if you were inside, if you were male, female, and, you know, I'm a bit rusty on my jiu-jitsu training at the moment, but, you know, you really do need to have that barrier in place. It's important, and obviously, when we're saying putting a barrier in place, we want a compliant security screen that is tested, that is made by an NSSA member, obviously, in place. That's key.
That's exactly right, and not even just on the front door. I'm actually hearing stories of people's laundry doors while they're sleeping being broken into as well, and you know, wife, husband, kids, everyone's asleep in the house, and they're just coming in through the back door and taking what they want. They're not taking the TV, they're taking the small stuff, but yeah, we've had a lot of that happen in our area more recently as well. So it's making sure that everyone's, you know, not just the front door, because people's perception is, oh, I'll just do something on the front door and I'll just do that on the back door. It needs to be, you know, something on
house,
part
doing
of the
all
house.
the openings.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right, so we're gonna change gears now. We've been talking about all those trends that have been coming into the to the security screen business. Let's talk about some case studies. So if we look at it, you know, barriers, systems supplier. You know, you design, you test product, you supply aluminium to a business like Katrina, where she then goes out and makes for retail customers and also wholesale window and door customers. I know we've got a couple of wholesale businesses in the New South Wales area. We've got Elite and PRW in the room. Michael, from a window company point of view, there's no tooling required with your system. They can order it. So it's a real low-cost barrier to entry for anyone considering security screens.
I think if there's window companies, and quite obviously window companies vary in size massively, and so it's really horses for courses. The ability to either partner up with a systems provider and and bring that integrate it into your whole business model. That's one model. The other one of outsourcing and buying in products so then you can add it to your business line without the tooling costs and the complexity of that is another strategy to take in. Or you can do a full service, so you can find a NSSA member that's happy to go out there and do the measure, install the quote and support your business and work more in a partnership on.
And look, whilst times are getting a bit tough at the moment, yes, there's a hole in the wall and you can whack a window, but we want to start talking about the whole opportunity. What's the opportunity that's in front of you? And obviously security screens can play a role in that, and there's obviously examples which we've just spoken about of where the security screen actually can improve the performance of whatever the glazing system is that's going in.
What's a house lot of security screens worth these days? Katrina?
What's your price?
Sorry, can I just see a show of hands? Is there anyone from the ACCC here? Let's bypass that question.
It doesn't take long to chalk up 10K, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It's a significant amount, and I guess the question is, what's a house load of windows worth in the average house? It's a significant revenue stream for the industry, for our collective industries, and I think some people are understanding that and seeing that opportunity, and some people are kind of a little bit oblivious to that situation and opportunity.
Derek, your model, you've got some licensees around the country, and I think of some success stories of window companies that have embraced security screens. Jason Windows in WA have done an excellent scenario. You work very closely with one up in Queensland as well?
Yeah, it's probably one of the largest glass and glazing window companies in Queensland, in G. James. They've partnered with Crimsafe for a long time. And they've tested the product within their system, so from an Australian standards point of view, and they use it as their point of difference to say that they've tested the product with it. And then all the branches have it not only to quote where you have a window and screen package, but if the window industry, as it is now, is in a down cycle, then screens follow that. So it may just be a screen opportunity that they're chasing. That flexibility when things do get tough to have another revenue stream that you can fall back onto when your windows are down this is a very profitable window stream, income stream. Yeah.
So Katrina, your business in Melbourne, you've done an exceptional job from where you've started to where you are today. Could you tell the crowd here today, I guess, a bit of information about your business in particular, and I guess how the NSSA integrates with that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we purchased our business 9 years ago. Our son there, Oliver, he was 6 months old when we bought the business, and he used to come along to work with me on a daily basis until we had a little incident with a set of bolt cutters and an electric drill. So then it was off to daycare for him. And so we've grown the business over the last 9 years. We had just myself and Greg and a subcontractor. Now we've got 7 full-time staff. I'm sure that's not, as big as some people in the room, but we feel that we're sort of heading in the right direction. We've launched the security door company, which is going to be our wholesale sort of business, and so we can further extend what we do in the area that we sort of service as well. So the NSSA for us. We were on board straight away because we can identify in Victoria, especially for us, we call them the backyard cowboys. They are the security door installers.
Yeah, it's quite unregulated down there, isn't it?
Sorry,
it's quite unregulated.
Yeah. Anyone can build a door and tell someone it's a security door and go ahead and install it, and it's far from a security door. So we hear lots and lots of stories in our area all the time. More recently, we had a lady call us and go, I just had a bird fly through my security door that I had installed 2 months ago. Can you come out and have a look at it for me because I can't get onto the installer? So off we go out there. Yeah, no, it wasn't. I think it wasn't even a magpie. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but she paid good money, was told it was a security door, and it was a fly door with some aluminium mesh in it. So she then bought a fully tested security door from us, and she ended up paying double basically, and we had quoted her originally, and the reason she hadn't gone with us is we were $100 more expensive. So she definitely paid way more than what she needed to. So we like having the National Security Screen Association behind us, so we can say to people we're members. We do our auditing each year. We build all our own doors, so we know exactly what it is that you're getting. We have all of our, the stickers around, and we're still trying to educate people on the NSSA at the moment, but it's a fantastic association to be a part of. I know for myself that I've learnt a lot since not only being a member but also being on the board, and it's definitely if you do anything with screens or anything, it's something you definitely need to be a part of, because quite simply over the next few years I can only see it getting bigger and you'll be left behind. So it's definitely something you've got to be a part of.
Following this, we'll all head back to the NSSA cafe, Beans and Screens. So if there are any questions that people want to have offline or catch up with Katrina, by all means come on down and enjoy a complimentary coffee. Some great certificates there on the wall, Katrina, nice and proud, and showing the success of those audits. And congratulations on the work on your business. Fantastic. All right. Our favourite part of the session. Questions from the audience. Who has some curveballs for our lovely panel? Come on, there's got to be a couple.
Who have we blacklisted, Jay?
So who have we got in the back here? Who have we got in the back? Can you stand up? Who have we got there? What's that you said? Okay, all right. So for the best question, the Deco Gecko has just informed me that there will be a bottle of Plonk available for the best question. I'll tell you what, the odds are pretty good now.
People thinking.
Everyone's letting him off the hook. Oh, hello. Hold on 1 second. Got to get my steps up. This is going to look great on my Fitbit.
Boys, not NSSA, but how are we going to go with cyclone rating? Are you guys going to sort of tackle that head on in the future coming up? Because it's even bigger grey area, I think, than what you were saying before about the screens on the windows.
Fire attenuation and things like
Fire
that.
attenuation,
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that the NSSA also has is a seat on the AWA or AGWA Technical Committee, and a few years ago the whole committee went up to James Cook University to raise this topic. It is still a bit of a grey area, but there is some work getting done in an ICP for this issue, and I guess there's still a bit of work to be done on both technical committees to get some clarity. But a couple of things that we are trying to standardise, I guess, is what is the testing methodology, and that's very vague at the moment, and everyone pretty much does what they want, and it's very hard for this to get dealt with. It is we've done some work, and I know you guys have too, at Crimsafe with hurricane testing over in the US. Yep. And so there are some good parallels there. It's definitely a value-add proposition to the whole industry, definitely a value-add to the consumers, and the insurance industry is very interested in this space too, because one of the biggest issues that flying debris brings, especially in the tropical parts of Australia, is it's not necessarily the complete write-off of a huge missile taking out the whole house. It's really the main issue is that the glass gets damaged, it gets filled up with water, then you end up writing off the house because of it gets inundated with water, and the plaster and all the rest of things get stripped out. So that's probably the biggest insurance concern that they have. If the house gets blown away into the ocean, well, that's probably easier to fix.
Yeah, the less your worries is security screens or the cyclone screens if the house is blown away.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so
Great question.
work has been done there. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys, from the floor? Fantastic.
G'day, Andrew from Stanbond in Adelaide. You've discussed the use of screens for facade systems, both as fire attenuation as solar control. Most of our screens have a requirement of maintenance. As we're talking about commercial works here, what's the expectation on how these products are going to be maintained and what that will do for warranty and the look in the medium term?
Good question.
Quality first.
Yeah.
Quality powder coating.
Quality, I guess that's a good way to start it. I mean, quality products, obviously a good place to start, particularly woven screens. I've had a lot of experience over the last 10 years, I guess, sourcing stainless steel, woven wire, or looking for sources of stainless steel wire all over the world, and the variation in the quality of that product is quite exceptional.
Scary.
You would not believe the factories that some of this stuff is made in. It would actually blow you away. Unfortunately, it's not always easy to see from the naked eye what the difference is, but certainly starting with the best quality mesh you can possibly get in a stainless steel screen is the best place to start. And that's not just the wire and the alloy, that's also the finishing in particular. And I've seen some quite startling powder coating operations that claim to be making stainless steel screens, and anyone who's in the screen industry in this room would get those emails from sources going, I can sell you some cheap mesh. That's I think the most important. Obviously ongoing maintenance is more of a challenge when you get into fire attenuation and multi-storey, and I think it's got to be part of the whole maintenance for the building that the screens are cleaned on a regular basis.
And probably just to add to that, I think there are products that all manufacturers are starting to move to where you can have an active panel on a screen. So not all screens are fixed. And it won't appeal to all commercial applications, but I think putting that option on the table and talking about maintenance at the time, both in specification and also at the time of tendering, is that you discuss those options and put forward an operable screen if your system supplier or the product that you're dealing with has that, so that they can open the screen, do the maintenance and then close it. So that area is developing.
Great question again, guys. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions? Andrew. Oh, we got two. Hold on, David. I'll come to you, and then I'll come to Andrew.
Hi, David Burley from Glass 24/7 on Mid-North Coast. Fall prevention screens. To me, I think they're just a waste of money. As soon as we put them in, they're current to the standard, but after a child leans on them 3 times, technically they're void and a child could fall to their death. Why did the government go and dumb it down so low?
I think that comes back to something I said earlier about what was the real issue that came out of Westmead Hospital and what they were trying to achieve. And it predominantly was about fly screens and kids leaning on fly screens and falling out. So that's really where that standard came from. So that was what defined that standard. There certainly has been a significant decrease in those incidents in the last 2 to 3 years in New South Wales. So I think there has been progress, which is great. Those incidents in the media were getting to a point where they were happening every couple of months. And they really are not as prevalent these days. So I think there is progress. The NSSA is reviewing those standards at the moment and looking at new standards and potentially stepping that up. But I think where we've got to is better than where we were, and hopefully we can get to a better place.
Just for short term, like holiday rentals, that's the problem. You just don't
Yep.
know.
How?
Little Michael's been a dickhead and jumped on the bed 10 times.
Yep.
Are you talking about me?
Michael has been a dickhead. It's been known to happen.
Fair point, David. That was actually well put to Michael. I got you back on that.
If someone else's child
Yeah.
comes on and leans out to look at the ocean and falls to his death, because
Yep.
yes, they currently, when they're installed, meet the standard, but
Yep.
Alsec tested theirs to EPAC 3 times, and I know Amplimesh did theirs to P10.
Yeah.
But as a parent of a small child, we want that kid to be
Yeah.
So a barrier rule, diamond rule would have been the cheapest or the best thing, and we went working down a path where we can't prove it or test it, or someone buys the unit in 12 months' time and we can't say that it's actually the same.
I know from a serviceability point of view, because you are right, there's the market launched with some flywire options and they didn't have the UV testing that's required after a few summers goes past. I find that the security screens, like a perforated aluminium as a base entry model, is a really good product to go in that space. Serviceability is low and it's tested to much higher standards, being the Australian standard. So the fall prevention requirement is 25 kilograms static load or 250 joules. Sorry, not 250 joules there, 250 newtons, where the Australian dynamic Australian standard for security doors or security screens is 100 joules, 5 impacts. So it is written that if you are a security screen and you are fitted off with that, you pick up the compliance for fall prevention. The benefit is as the years go past, the serviceability is quite low compared to a fabric alternative. Andrew, I'll come to you.
I think the biggest potential for market gain that we can get in the industry is getting around this ventilation law. You know, to only open up that window 100 mil, but it's okay that the ventilation laws don't pass anymore because the safety of the kids comes first. So what have we got to do as an industry to get that ventilation law reenacted? So we've got to put security grills, hopefully, not just kid-safe screens on, because the potential's enormous.
I'd be interested to get some feedback on this. I guess from an outsider looking at the window industry, it looked like this construction code came along and the window industry had to respond to that quite quickly, and the restrictors came in really quickly, and I think it took a little while for the consumers to actually move into those houses and actually understand what's actually happened, to realise that that wasn't exactly the user experience that they were hoping for, to have this beautiful window and do this. And consequently, they're running the air conditioning all the time because they can't get any decent ventilation. I think that happened. I think everyone understands that it's not a great place for us to be as an industry, and the consumer's not getting what they want. So I think this is why we're having this conversation here with the window industry and so forth, and trying to make people realise up front that window restrictors, yes, that will get you past the regulatory minimum that you must achieve, but are you actually giving the best benefit to the consumer? And will you be referred for more business on that basis?
Yep. All right, guys, we'll wrap up question time. Deco Gecko has just informed me, for the guys that asked questions, you all get a bottle of wine, so that's all right. Thank you very much, Deco Gecko. Guys, always a bit of a nervous feeling when you get those questions from the floor, so well done and well handled. You all look quite well relieved, which is important, so that's good. That's good. So look, guys, thanks panel. Thanks very much for coming through today. I'd like to thank everyone here who has attended. Want to recognise the Development Fund contributors for the NSSA who really help steer this association along. But we are a member-based organisation. We're doing this for our members that are out there in the security screen market. So we'd like to recognise those that couldn't make it here today, but certainly we're doing this for their benefit as well. So thanks very much, Development Fund members. Thanks to everyone in the room. Please join us for a coffee at the Beans and Screens Cafe and have a great rest of your conference. Cheers.